Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Flipping Out. Today, my guest is Scott Pennebaker, and I've known Scott for probably, I don't know, maybe 4 years now, maybe even longer than that, Scott. But somebody I've known who we've been in masterminds together. We cross paths. Some of the people on his team are from Philly, where I was from, so we have a lot of kinship there. We're going to get into a little bit about what Scott used to do too in Lexington, Kentucky with textbooks. That's something I actually want to get into because that's kind of a fun off, key thing. It's something different that no other real estate investor was ever involved in this for sure, but definitely a profitable business. So Scott, before I ask you about how you got started in real estate investing, tell us just a little bit about the textbook business there and then maybe how that kind of led you to real estate investing.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Paul. Yeah, I think it's been at least 4 or 5 years that we've known each other. So I was happy to hop onto the podcast when you asked, and glad to be here. So yeah, textbook arbitrage or textbook wholesaling was one of my first intros into wholesaling. Right. So publishing companies have publishing reps that publishing companies send out free books to professors to review and put them on their syllabus, and thousands of kids go buy them. And each publishing company has a pub rep, like a drug rep, that gives those things out. What my company would do we would call on those professors and buy back the books directly from them that they weren't going to adopt for the next semester. And we just pay cash. We'd knock on their door at their office, and then we'd resell them on Amazon or eBay, and sell them direct to students. So we had sales reps all across the country that would call on professors and buy back these review copies. They would ship them all to our warehouse in Lexington. And then we had an e-commerce platform that allowed us to really have a bookstore, a college bookstore on every campus, because no one ever really likes the college bookstore, right? They always seem to charge a lot, and they never want to give you much money back for them at the end of the semester. So we already had that going for us. So then as Amazon started to promote and to grow throughout the 2000s, it really became a great platform for us to list the books and sell the books. And I started as just knocking on doors on college campuses in 2005. And then in 2012, I reconnected with Brandon Devlin, who's one of our partners at Rebuild as well. Brandon and I worked for a direct sales company in college selling books door to door. So not textbooks. We actually sold educational books in college in the Midwest. We would take our summers and go run a crazy door to door business. Mm-hmm. And so Brandon had stayed on throughout the 2000s and recruited for that company when I was getting into the textbook business. Then when he left in 2012, he was looking for his next move. And I said, well, man, I could use some sales reps to really, the book business was a prescription industry. The right. Professors prescribed the books. If we had the books and knew what to pay, we could sell them. So the key was really getting the textbooks. And so Brandon brought over about 40 people in his first year, and that company kind of exploded. We had sales reps, all across the country. And then Brandon and I are like, man, our systems and processes are terrible. We need to try to figure out someone to help us build out that operation side of the business. Brandon and I were sales guys, right?
Right.
And typically the sales guys aren't the best operators, if you've seen that in your own business.
Oh, absolutely. We can all speak to that, right? We're the visionaries, the guys that come up with the ideas, but we're not great at running the operations. Totally.
100%. So Brandon's like, well, you really need to meet my cousin, Al. Al and Brandon are first cousins, both from Philadelphia, as you alluded. And Al had been working with BlackRock on Wall Street as a director for about 10 years. So I met with Al. He consulted for about a year. And then as we started to grow that business out, he's like, man, this is really cool. This is going well. So in 2015, Al left BlackRock, and he and Brandon became equity partners in Recycle a Textbook. Mm-hmm. So everything was going well with that, but we all really enjoyed real estate. I had, bought and had a couple dozen rentals in Lexington. Brandon had a few dozen in Nashville. Al had a shore house that he leased out, a short-term rental, and a few other properties in Philadelphia. So we said, why don't we just kind of form together another LLC and start buying properties together? And so from 2015 to 2018, we bought about 150 single family rentals and really buying them from wholesalers is how we were sourcing them. We were the investor that was buying them and fixing them and renting them and just kind of burning in and out of them.
Right.
And then in 2018, we're like, man, we've paid these wholesalers a fortune to bring us these deals. Maybe this is something we could do for ourselves. So we hired a student from University of Kentucky to help us just take phone calls and teach them how to run appointments in the homes. We started dropping our own mail, really started getting so many leads. We're like, we can't really close on all of these for ourselves. So let's assign some to our network. And we quickly realized that it was a lot easier to assign the deals than to actually take them all down, do the construction, refi. And as you know, rental property doesn't kick off a ton of cash until the banks are paid off. So it's kind of a get rich slow business.
It is.
And then textbooks, a lot of stuff between like 2017, 18, 19 started moving digital, right? Things were going online, all the coursework and even the textbooks. So we started to see sales go flat in that. And we're like, well, we have all these rental properties, but they're not kicking off a ton of cash flow. We know we don't really want to scale a fix and flip company because dealing with contractors is
nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we thought, well, maybe wholesaling is a business that we should look at. It's scalable and we can actually do it in multiple markets and it will drive revenue and kick off cash. So, and replace the textbook company. So we operated both businesses really from 2018 to 2020. When COVID hit and all the schools shut down, we were locked out of college campuses. No one was showing up to teach courses. We just said, this might be an opportunity for us to get some PPP money. We had about a dozen warehouse workers. Let's keep them on payroll. They can help us wind down the company. So really in 2020 was when we shut down the textbook company, said, now we'll put all of our focus into rebuild. At that time, we had a Lexington office, a Nashville office, and a Philly office. But later in 2020 and then in 2021, we added Knoxville, Chattanooga, and started adding like Huntsville and Birmingham. And now we're in a dozen markets across about 6 states.
And these are great markets that you're in. I want to say almost aside from Philly, but Philly's still red hot right now. I think in a matter of time before that one eventually slows down. But the Sun Belt, Tennessee, Alabama, those other markets you're in there are, Tennessee is huge, obviously, and just growing markets. These are where people want to be. These are where a lot of jobs are going too, between Nashville, between Alabama, a lot of car dealerships. I think Nissan might be down there. I'm trying to remember some of the car dealerships that are down in those areas, but they're great markets long-term too. And all still pretty affordable markets, maybe outside of Nashville. Nashville's getting pretty expensive, isn't that?
Absolutely. Yeah, our goal was really to focus on growth in the Sun Belt. We're in Philadelphia because it was an outlier. That's where Al and Brandon are from. Yep. That was our third office, essentially just because one of the partners were there. Al has since actually moved to Nashville where Brandon lives as well. And our headquarters for Rebuilt is in Nashville. But you're right. It's growing. It's booming. The Sun Belt is hot. That's where everyone wants to be. Tennessee's a tax-friendly state. We're also in Texas. What happened really when we closed the book business down, we had some top sales guys from that, and we're like, hey, you kind of know what we've been doing with Rebuild on the side. Like, we're having to close the textbook company, but would you like to learn about real estate investing? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So we were able to transition some of those top sales guys into reps at Rebuilt and teach them how to run in-home appointments. They were already comfortable with approaching and kind of the one-call close that we did with the textbooks. So it seemed like a natural progression. But that's really why we got started in Austin. Was one of our top guys was down there at that time.
Yeah, that Austin market has actually cooled quite a bit, has it not? And over the past, say, 6 months, maybe in 12 months or so, since interest rates really drove up. I know there was a big migration from California to Austin. And again, it's another one of those Silicon Valley type places.
That's
where
right.
A lot of those tech jobs were going. So if you look at it, and I've really monitored and watched this closely, when the NASDAQ got killed last year, NASDAQ, obviously all tech stocks and everything, you saw the downfall of San Francisco area, the Bay Area there in California. Phoenix got hit to an extent, and of course, Texas, and in Denver, Colorado. Denver, Colorado had become around 2010 or so. It become a tech hub, and there were a bunch of Californians moving there, ruining that state, unfortunately, which they have. Used to be a great state. Now, politically,
Right.
they're an absolute disaster and a shit show. But that's besides why I still love Colorado. It's beautiful. But
I
you see,
see in Texas all
yeah.
the notes said, "Don't California my Texas," right?
Yes. Yeah. Don't California, my Texas. Yeah. Texas still doing solid, though. Still good. Great market. We're in that one, too. Tennessee. Do you guys do anything in any other markets? Are those the markets that you kind of focus on? The Alabama, the Tennessee, a little bit in Texas, and are those markets you're focusing on
We
right
also have Cincinnati in Ohio because it's an hour north, and
now?
then we're working Louisville, Kentucky, which is right on the border of Indiana. So we'll work Southern Indiana,
Okay.
um, and like I said, the Alabama, the Texas. We have a Memphis office, so we've done some deals over in Mississippi, right across the border there.
Hmm.
But primarily, the majority of our stuff is Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas.
Nice. And I tell you what, you had a nice advantage of running those two businesses simultaneously there. And of course, when COVID hit and changed the textbook business there for you, that was really nice. You were able to draw like your better salespeople from there into your real estate business. That was you
We
already
were
know
very
people, right?
fortunate,
Yeah,
very fortunate. And COVID really created a ton of hiring challenges
yeah,
that I think we even still face today. I mean,
totally.
we're really having to double down on, talent acquisition folks to find and headhunt executives, and then we're using a company that does bulk recruiting to find field sales reps. So they'll have really their specialties like more full commission sales reps. We do a small base with a commission, so it's a little easier pitch for them. But we'll get 60, 80 people show up on a Zoom interview for like an intro, kind of go through a PowerPoint, and then narrow it down to a dozen or so to take next steps with.
Nice. That's yeah. I mean, it definitely did. The whole pandemic really changed everything as far as hiring and where we're getting. We got a lot of VAs, which helped us. That we're already kind of going overseas and doing that thing, but locally trying to find people, trying to find contractors has been even worse, right? Than anybody else, or good competent
100%.
contractors. That's been an absolute nightmare. So smart you doing the wholesaling. We're trying to do more of the wholesale. We buy a lot, and you may have done this too. You guys may be doing this as well as us over the past 3 years, call it, since COVID and the real estate market really heating up. We have just been taking down properties. It's all bank owned that we're buying, and then trying to find ones where we have to do minimal work too. So we're just making them mortgageable, wholetailing, I'm calling it, and listing them on
Mhm.
MLS. Is that something you guys have been doing as well?
That's smart. We would like to do more of that. We haven't. We don't have the bandwidth to really manage any sort of construction. Now, we could do a clean out or something like that, but what happens is it even managing something like that takes our rep off the field
Hmm.
to go meet and oversee and have them oversight. And we only have about 2 to 3 reps per market. So they're running, ideally we're getting them running 6 to 10 appointments each per week. So we really want them meeting with home sellers versus managing, any kind of project like that. But we have looked for dispo has been a huge struggle since the market changed.
Hmm.
We formed a lot of bad habits in a really good market. It was easy to just go out and give sellers the number they wanted and throw it up on a Facebook page and have multiple offers. Where now you actually have to go out and sell the deal to the investors and be a little bit more proactive on the dispo side. So we're really starting to hire a dispo person in every market, and then have 1 to 2 acquisition agents in each market as well.
Awesome. And I might be able to help you. We'll talk offline about this too, but I might be able to help you on the dispo side. There are some new things coming out that we'll talk about, that I'll probably be talking about in future podcasts too. That's
Oh, that's great.
works for different places, and things that have worked well for us because we're in a lot of the same markets. So
Mhm.
we can definitely give you some ideas and some help on doing that dispo side, because the dispo side is a pain in the butt, right? It is something, and you really do need to have good people on the dispo side, and you can't have your acquisition people being the 10th, 11th, 12th person. You got to have 10 people on the dispo side. And you can't have your acquisition people being the 10th, 11th, 12th person. You got to have good people on the dispo side. And you really do need to have good people on the dispo side, and you can't have your acquisition people being the 10th, 11th, 12th person. You got to have good people on the dispo side. And you can't have your acquisition people being the 10th, 11th, 12th person. You got to have good people on the dispo side. And you can't have your acquisition people being the 10th, 11th, 12th person. You got to have good people on the dispo side. And you can't have your acquisition people being the 10th, 11th, 12th person. You got to have good people on the dispo side. And you can't have your acquisition people being the 10th, 11th, 12th person. You got to have good people on the dispo side. And you can't have your acquisition people being the 10th, 11th, 12th person. You got to have good people on the dispo side. And you can't dispo people, because there's so much time involved in the dispo side, because you really want to go to as many local RIA events, even if they're online events going on or meetup groups in these different areas, to find out who the big players are. And I've gotten into that here in since I moved to Southwest Florida, and it's helped me find a lot of buyers locally here, say called in a 2-hour radius in Southwest Florida. But it's going out and doing that, networking, getting their info, and then, putting them on the text blast list or the email blast list, all that kind of stuff. It's just something you almost need a full-time person for, especially when you're in multiple markets like you're in there. But a lot of it has
100%.
migrated virtually, good and bad,
Mm-hmm.
because it is much easier for me to go to an event, meet people, and meet 20 or 30 people than me to go on a Zoom meetup and meet more than a couple people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's different. In person is far, far different there. But we'll definitely talk some there, something we could definitely help you with.
That's interesting you bring it up. I mean, the time that it takes to do dispo to do it correctly, you're exactly right. We would always have peaks and valleys, and we're like, we get all these contracts and then we wouldn't get any because they're working on dispo on all of them. So like when you have the same people doing that, both roles, it creates obviously some conflicts of interest, some moral hazards, but more than that, it just takes their focus off acquisitions. So you really need to bifurcate both of those roles. And I think, going to those meetups and those RIA groups is a great way to build the relationships that, yeah, you're right. It's hard to do that on a Zoom call.
It is. And there's certain things when you contact those RIA, and this is good information for anybody out there just listen on how to dispo. This is like the high level thing. When you go to, let's say, Philadelphia, right? DIG is a huge group, and I'm sure you guys probably know about that in Philadelphia area. And there's a ton of buyers in DIG. And what you do is you reach out to the main guy, and I happen to know a few of these guys, but you reach out to one of the main people there and say, you've got deals, however many you have per month, who are the major players, and they'll generally link you to like 5 to 10 different people. Those are the people you want to add to your, because you don't want tire kickers, right? There's so many people go to these meetings and they don't buy, they just go and they network and they meet, but they don't really actually buy. Maybe they do a deal or two a year. But they'll tell you who the big players are when you get involved that way. We've done that. We've gone through bigger pockets. We've gone through so many back doors to find different buyers and stuff. But there's still probably one of the best ways out there is to pull a cash buyers list in the area, and then mail out some postcards, but not just generic ones. You want to make it look a little different than everybody else's, as far as when you're mailing to cash buyers and trying to get them, that you want to catch their attention so they'll reach out to you. And there's a couple little pieces of information there on this.
That's good. We haven't done any direct mail to cash buyers. Now we text and email them, and call. We do a lot of calling and just try to get them on the phone.
That's the best. That's the
If you can get them on the phone, then you can really build a relationship. And it's nice to have a deal in your back pocket that you're calling them about. And like, hey, I noticed you own one on, around the corner from this one. You're not on our buyers list, but I wanted to reach out and see if this would be something you're interested in. And that's really, I think, there's some software out there that a lot of wholesalers have started using for dispo, but it's really crowded the space where investors are getting so much and so many emails and texts about deals. They don't know what's a deal, and they don't have time to underwrite it because a lot of them are mom and pops that have other jobs. And so making that extra step of actually reaching out and making a phone call, that we've seen great success, and a huge uptick with that. But again, we had to create a whole department now that actually focuses on dispositions, where before our local office could just throw it up on the local Facebook page and it would move. So having to work at it a lot more.
Yeah, we're getting into more of a normalized market. It's still not normal, but more normal. Let's say 2019 pre-COVID, right, where inventory was still at a pretty low level. We had to work to resell the property a lot more than we did in 2020 through 2022. 2023 is making us all work a little bit harder for sure.
That's right. That's right.
No doubt. But good overall. Now let's talk about a little bit of what you do for. You have many markets you're in. How many acquisition managers do you have that you're utilizing right now at this point?
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because we're actually hiring quite a few right now in all of our markets. We have around 15 currently, but we're looking for dispo in every market. and we're looking for, we want to add at least 2 to 3 per market. Like Philly, I think could even have 4
Yeah.
acquisitions as large as it is. We're covering Delaware, New Jersey. We cast really a wide net. Texas is the same way. I mean, we go out an hour and a half from our central office, and so you need redundancy of reps to be able to cover those large territories. So we have, I think, about 25 open job recs right now. If you go to lifeatrebuilt.com, you can see there's a link to our career portal there. You can see all the open positions in the areas that we're hiring in for anyone looking to learn this business. And the cool thing about Rebuilt is that we'll actually teach you how to think like an investor, be an investor, to build something for yourself. You can source properties from us. We have a lending arm, Rebuilt Capital, where we'll lend you money to do the deals. So it's a great opportunity, instead of, paying for a really expensive course, to come in and get real experience meeting with sellers and learning the ins and outs on how to grow a real estate business.
Yeah, no doubt. And with a growing company, right? A growing young company who's out there trying to continue to build. And it's just great opportunity for somebody. And link is for those watching on YouTube or those that can see this here. There's links streaming down below, lifeatrebuilt.com, right? And we have a couple other ones. There's rebuilt.com. And then let's talk actually a little bit about your title company, because basically what you guys have created with your national title company, which covers 22 states, I believe, you created it from an investor standpoint, right? From what an investor is looking for. Talk a
That's
little
right.
bit about what your title company does. I know you guys do novations, which is really popular and wild right now. It's going to continue to grow. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, 100%. So we had no intention of really starting a title company in the beginning. But we found that as we went into these new markets, just the pain points of trying to convince a local title, not really convince, but teach them the wholesale side. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of our files have hair on them, so they require a little bit more work. They're not $600,000 homes with huge title premiums. They're under 150, under 200,000 with the lower title premium. So we were asking title companies to do more work for less money. And we found that the lack of communication, not really between us and the title company, but between the customer. There's nothing worse than a seller or an investor calling and say, "What's going on? I haven't heard from anyone in 2 weeks. Are we still closing? Are you still buying this?" So we really wanted to create the title company to have transparency and to create a better customer experience for our investors and our sellers. And so we created it for ourselves. So we attach about 90% of our files through national title. We are licensed in 22 states, mainly across the South and in the Midwest. And then we do, like, as you pointed out, novations, 1031 exchanges, separate closing statements for wholesalers, for the buyer and the seller, double closings. We do all remote online transactions, which a lot of investors like, because they don't have to show up at a closing table somewhere and take time out of their day. They can be in their office at a scheduled time, pull up a web page, meet with a notary like on a Zoom like this, show an ID, sign docs online. That was one thing COVID really helped as well, is that
Yes.
a lot of the legal signatures now can be binding with e-sig versus having to worry about a
Wet
wet
signature.
signature.
Yeah.
And then the sellers, a lot of those are elderly folks. Sometimes they're elderly folks, and just trying to explain where the title company is and how to get there. It's on the 3rd floor. So a lot of times what we'll do, if they're not familiar or comfortable with the technology side, we'll just send
Send a
a
notary.
mobile notary. Yeah,
Mhm.
that somebody can sit there in the home with them, go through the docs, answer any questions. So it's been really efficient for us, and it's our investors love it, and it's allowed us to be in 22 markets, without having like a fit. Some of the offices we have to have, or some states we have to have a physical office.
Yeah.
And in those, we just use our Rebuilt office for that same location.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I actually use a national title company too. What states do you guys do? Or yeah, it's probably easier to say which states. Do you remember off the top of your head what states they are?
It's a long list, but kind of going through them, I know I might miss some, but Texas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Delaware, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Kansas,
Mhm.
and Missouri.
I might be able to utilize you a lot. I mean, we're in a lot of the same markets with where we focus on.
I'll send you a full list.
Do that. Send a full list, and that way I can put an attachment here in the show notes
Awesome.
too, with all the states that are covered, so other people out there who are, because look, it's a lot easier. And I use national title company. It's a lot easier when you use one title company as often as
100%.
you can, because you build a relationship there. They have an understanding of what you're doing. So, and I do, so many times they'll send a notary to me. I try to do as many online as I can, but I found out Wyoming still doesn't allow the signature on the deed when I'm doing a resale. So I had to have a live notary come out there. But otherwise, the notary online is awesome. It's great to do. It's simple. COVID really pushed it, and I'm super happy it did. It was around pre-COVID, it was, but not to the extent. Once COVID came, it really changed everything and really pushed those guys, accelerated. And it's much less expensive than somebody coming out and driving out and actually, showing up at your house or your location. But sometimes
100%.
for the elderly, like you said, and we deal with it here. Only place we do direct to sellers here in Southwest Florida. So we do send a notary, because a lot of the older people, they just don't know what they're doing with that. But no,
That's
that's
right. It's a
huge.
comfort level, and you want them to feel comfortable in the entire transaction, top to bottom.
Totally.
Yeah, I'll definitely send you a full list over. The We were lucky during COVID because we were still considered an essential business in title companies and real estate. We were still able to operate. But yeah, that's one of the good things I guess that came out of COVID.
Yeah, I know. There's only a few handful of good things
Right.
that have come out. There's a lot of pain in the butt things for us that,
No
that we're
doubt.
still dealing with. But it did accelerate. It made the real estate industry a little crazy, a little hyperbolic here with what's going on. We're still seeing it even now. There's still demand. It's just interest rates have um, pushed up mortgage rates, where it's kind of stymied the demand just a bit here. But we'll see. We were talking before the call here about the Fed, staying put with interest rates here. Would be really curious to see what happens with mortgage rates longer term. I'm hopeful that we can get into the fives, because when you get into the fives for homeowners, there is a lot of desire for people to buy. So then it's gonna, good and bad, right? Good and bad. You're gonna have more demand when you go to resell your property. The acquisitions will become a little bit harder, would be my
That's
guess
right.
here again, right? Just like they've been over the past 5 or 6 years or so here. But we'll see where that takes us here.
Are you all targeting any kind of assumable mortgages?
We're trying to get as many of those. I think that's the biggest for the next 5 years. That's the biggest
That's
thing
the
we're looking at
hottest.
tapping
That's the
into.
hottest thing you can have right now is a mortgage
Subject
at
to and
three
assumables, right?
percent.
Yeah.
hmm
Because that debt is so cheap. I mean, like my house I have here is a 3% mortgage. I can't get rid of it. Right? It's the cheapest debt I'll have, and
Yeah,
the cash flow is a rental, so I'll always be keeping this property. But those would be great ones to add to your portfolio if you're looking at it as rentals, right? So I think that's something that a lot of people are going to be looking at doing, getting those assumables. And if you can get them under contract and wholesale, and there's plenty of investors who will buy them and pay a premium, big
hundred
time
percent,
premium for them.
100%.
So that's definitely something to have, and a tool in your tool belt as we're moving forward here. Now, if rates come back down, great, because I've got some things I'd like to refinance as rentals. So we'll see what goes on there. I'm knocking on wood, and I'm hoping that we get some kind of a drop there.
They're quoting me like 7.5% in Kentucky.
Yeah, I've been
You
getting
know,
that too. I have the 12-unit building in Casper, Wyoming, and I'm looking to refinance, and I'm getting like 7.45 on that one. And they got prepayment penalties, which suck.
yeah,
Um, and then I got a 5-unit that I'm renovating out there, and I'm going to be refinancing it. I'm sure it's going to be in the same. That's why I'm hoping rates drop a little, because if I go from 7.5 to like 6.5, that really helps the cash flow. It really makes a big
100%.
difference.
Yeah, it's crazy. We didn't realize how good we had it when it was as low as it was.
We're spoiled. You know what you got till you lose it, right?
That's right.
Now
That's
bring
right.
it back. They become back, right? That's a good old song there. We went back cheap mortgage rates. That's one request we have out there. So let's see
Yes,
what we get
please.
there. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the Philly market, because obviously where I was born and raised in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and it's been a good market. You guys have done a lot there over the years. For me, when I did wholesaling there, it was generally to buy and hold guys, depending on where it was. You know, if it was a higher end area, it's a different thing. You'll flip it. But has that been the case for you guys as well in the Philly proper
It
market?
has. It's mostly buy and hold. And I'll tell you, the biggest challenge we've had in Philadelphia is title
Oh,
issues.
yes. Yes.
It's just these properties do not transfer the correct way upon, maybe the passing of a relative or whatnot. And, people think because grandma gave it to me that I own it and I can sell it. And if it's just not titled correctly, we've had so many deals, either just get held up for a month, 2 months to try to close, or just not close at all
Yeah.
due to title issues. So, but Philly's interesting. I mean, definitely some of our more interesting appointments are there. And then in New Jersey, we've gotten some stuff near AC, and
Mhm.
we've seen some people buying those for more short-term rentals, to rent out as Airbnbs for overnight type things. And then Delaware's been nice, just right across the border
Mhm.
there. We've done a handful of deals over there, and they started expanding our marketing out that way. Um, but yeah, I'm not super familiar with Philly. Probably Al and Brandon could speak more to that since that's their stomping grounds. But
Yes.
I know that it's been one of our legacy markets, and one of our top RSLs is in that area. And they work really hard, and those guys do a great job. It's just you feel terrible because they fill the pipeline up, and then sometimes 30-40% of that stuff falls out
All out.
just due
Yeah.
to title, and
Yeah.
it's nothing anyone can control. So we just have to put 200% more in there to make sure that it closes.
I know it's a whole different animal. It's a little bit easier in New Jersey and Delaware. You don't have those same type of generally. You don't have
That's
those
right.
same type of things. So it's been easier markets. I used to do a lot of deals in New Jersey. I've kind of gotten a little bit away from it, but and there's not, of course, not as many out there, especially on the bank owned side currently, just because the demand has been so high. You had so many people moving out of New York City, and again, this is helping the Philadelphia market. So many people moved out of New York City and into New Jersey, South Jersey, the shores, into the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania, and into Philadelphia area. It's been unbelievable. Really, it started in 9/11. 9/11 was the first exodus of New Yorkers into Philadelphia. For the city itself, it gave the city a lot of good restaurants, because what ended up happening is, for whatever reason, you get a lot of these New Yorkers who love the restaurants and stuff. You got a lot of them that were chefs or entrepreneurs and created their own restaurants. If Philly's restaurants took a step up post 9/11, really starting probably around 2006 and beyond there. But that was when the first exodus of New Yorkers and North Jersey people came down. And then COVID pushed more down into Delaware as well. Delaware is a neat, interesting market. Real estate taxes are super low there for the most part. And population is not real big, but the demand's high. That's been an area where people have wanted to move to, and from out of the cities and into the Delaware market. So it's been interesting.
The food scene in Philadelphia is over the top for sure.
It is.
It's wonderful.
It is. It's really good. And it didn't used to be back in. They were great. Like my grandparents were born and raised there in South Philly, and you had some great Italian restaurants. And of course, the best ones are still the holes in the wall that don't look that great, but it is the most authentic, really, really good food. But there's some just top-notch stuff in Center City and Old City, Philadelphia. And Old City is a whole other area. And it's probably almost impossible to find a deal in Old City right now, as hot as that market is. But no, it's an interesting market. And I still do maybe a deal or two a year in Philadelphia, but not too often. Just inventory so low. Just talking about where I used to live, the suburbs of Philadelphia, about 45 minutes. There's a little town next to me called Ambler, which used to have 200, 300, 400 properties for sale at all the time. It's not that small of a town. It's a big enough town. Right now, there are 4 properties on the market, 4 houses
That's it?
for sale. That's it. So there's no, and the prices are through the roof. So I'm just simple, basic supply and demand. It's a macroeconomic problem.
Right.
That's
They're
going
like
on
make
there.
me move prices.
Yes, there are make me move prices. These are row homes, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 1,200 square feet. They're going for $389,000 that I used to be able to pick up as a HUD property for 40, 50, 60, 80 grand
Holy
back
cow.
in the early 2000s. Yeah. And
That's
Ambler
insane.
revitalized, made itself a really nice little downtown Main Street area. Great restaurants there. Of course, when you revitalize, you have great restaurants and good businesses there.
Mhm.
The whole community gets better. The town I was born and raised in, Lansdale, did the same thing, and they're having the same problems, not enough inventory. So I got lucky. I did pick one up there recently, and I'm doing a basic wholesale, and I'm going to resell it, and I'll probably do really well with that. But those deals are few and far between. But that's definitely something I want to talk to you a little bit off the call here about how you can handle some of those renovations without being a major headache to your team.
Yeah, I would love some insight on that, because I know you do that a lot, and
We do.
mostly your wholesale business is virtual. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's virtual. We bought in 44 to 50 states, but like you, we focus. We do a lot in Pennsylvania, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, the Carolinas, a lot in the Carolinas, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, a little bit New Mexico, occasionally Louisiana, occasional Mississippi, occasional Kentucky. We did one last year in a tiny, tiny town you probably never heard of, called Lovely, Kentucky, out in the mountains. You ever hear of Lovely, Kentucky?
I haven't. No.
Really out in the middle of nowhere.
Sounds lovely.
It is. It's lovely, but it's Hickville for sure. But
it's in the mountains, I'm sure.
It is. It is in the mountains. But neat little area. We focus on those markets. A little bit occasionally in Kansas. You probably get some bleed over from Kansas and Missouri as well. But I think that Sun Belt moving forward, most investors, or for people looking to do virtual markets, they should really focus on the Sun Belt area, because that's the growth. That's where all the companies are moving. That's where the job opportunities are. And you got to follow the jobs, because that's where home values will rise over time, as opposed to where people are leaving. The migration maps are probably the most important things new investors can look at when they're looking at investing, because you don't want to go to a state like Illinois where people are leaving in droves and start buying rentals there, right? You're going to have negative cash flow down the road. So important to be in these good markets, especially like Alabama. I mean, Alabama to me is still one of the best, hottest markets in the country. It's a big time. It's tough to find deals there. It really is. But things can cash flow as a rental there that you could fix and flip. You can obviously buy and hold, the Burr method there. They all work really, really well.
We've been able to find and drive a lot of appointments in Huntsville and Birmingham area. And really, I think more so since a lot of the iBuyers have dropped out. They were in there so thick that it also drove all the pricing up and gave people unrealistic expectations. So we've had to kind of wait for some of those expectations to come back down, and to explain to sellers that they didn't care. They didn't understand what was really happening, the average seller with the iBuyers. So trying to educate them on, how that was a phase, and we're not in the same market that we were a year ago.
No, and they're going to be learning that, the hard way. And they're going to end up taking less than they were going to take before. I'm so happy the iBuyers have gone away, because all they did was create disruption in the market and problems. And, it's still an industry where about 80-90% of the investors out there are mom and pop investors. People like us, we're still considered mom and pop investors, right? Even though we do a lot of deals per year, we're still considered mom and pop investors. We're not the iBuyers out there. We're not BlackRock trying to buy up the world, right? Try to buy up there. You had Zillow out there trying to use. It's what happens when you get a bunch of overeducated but really not street smart people working at Zillow, going off their estimate with properties in Phoenix and these different markets where they were buying like crazy, ridiculous numbers, and then thinking they were just going to be able to resell it.
That's right.
They got burned.
They're working on like a 3 and 4% contribution margin. Like, it doesn't take much movement in the market to tank you.
No. And in this market, we're teaching our students that we're teaching, we're trying to get them back to old school method. 75% of ARV minus the repairs, blah, was what people were using. And in markets like Phoenix, people are going to 80-85%, which is just crazy, right? Probably happened in different parts of Florida as well. But we got our students initially last year in the summer down to 70%. Now we've pulled them all to 65%. Go back to that was my old mantra. 65% of ARV minus repairs, minus the wholesale fee you want. That's your maximum allowable offer. So we're pulling them back to that, because what it does, it gives you a little bit of margin, gives you a little bit of safety in play. And you got to pump up your repair numbers and your holding time, because of supply chain issues that we're dealing with. All those different things. And speaking of supply chain issues, something I want to talk with you a little bit here.
Sure.
You're not doing a ton, hopefully, of the the rehabs, and we were with, especially with the multi-unit that I'm doing out there, it's still the electrical parts are like 9 weeks out. So we're talking 2.5 months waiting for different things just to get new electrical stuff.
Oh
The
no.
windows are always 3+ weeks out. I used to be able to order a window on a Wednesday and get it the next Wednesday from these different manufacturers. Now it's just not the case. We can't do that. Has that been a disruptor for you as well?
Well, I know Windows is always for us taking longer. That's like the first thing we order when we go in, and we are doing a couple flips in Nashville just because we have some extra team members there to help manage that. Brandon actually is managing one right now that we bought from a wholesaler that we're flipping. But yeah, I mean, definitely the hold times to sell them, and then the some of the construction times and the delays on the materials have, that's really why we've decided we just didn't want to scale
Yeah.
flipping. But as the market's tightened, and wholesale fees have compressed, we've definitely looked at ways to expand that, which is really one reason we also started the brokerage. So we weren't just having a cash offer. We're already paying for the lead. If
Mhm.
all we can pitch is a cash offer, then we're really hamstrung to that number if it doesn't work for someone. So by having the brokerage as an offering, it gives us another product to say, Mrs. Jones, sounds like you want the most money and you're not in a hurry. This would be a perfect fit for our brokerage. And really, all of our agents, all of our acquisition agents, if you come to work at Rebuilt, will help you get a real estate license.
Mhm.
And that way you can refer those leads over to our brokerage and our broker, and they would handle the listing, but then we can still pay a commission back to the agent for converting that into a listing. And then another product has been just novations and
Yeah.
then some of the creative stuff. So having more products to pitch and finding a way and really positioning yourself as a solutions provider, no matter what the situation is. Again, you're already paying for all those marketing leads. So why not have more ways to capitalize on them?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Do you have brokerages in all the locations where you guys buy in, all the states, all the markets where you're in?
We do. Yeah.
It's huge.
Texas was the hardest one, as most things are in Texas. They're
Yeah.
hard to get set up, and same with the title. But we have licensed brokerages in all of those states.
And you hire in different agents? Are you looking for more agents to come on board?
Really, we are looking for brokers for those some
Okay.
of those states. We need some redundancy. We don't want like one designated broker having 4 or 5 states under
Yeah,
them. We'd like to really minimize it to where they have 2 states at
makes sense.
most. If they leave, then we're not hamstrung or out. Like we're looking for a Tennessee broker right now. There's 4 markets in Tennessee. We have Memphis, Knoxville, Nashville, and Chattanooga. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And then as we start to get more and more leads, like we just really started pushing brokerage in the last 60 days or 90 days, but we've already gotten about 20 listings and closed about 5, and then we have 9 pending. So definitely things are still moving on market. And these are properties that a lot of times they're in disrepair. I mean,
Yeah,
they still need some work. But like you said earlier, getting them on the MLS and getting the exposure to the property is huge. And I think
it
that's
is.
another reason why novations are so popular is it's just basically a legal net listing and allow you to get the thing listed on the MLS and get more exposure. Even if it's not a retail buyer, a lot of new investors are looking on the MLS to source property. And so you even be able to pick some people up that maybe don't know what a wholesaler is at this
Yeah.
point. They're just looking to get into finding some deal flow.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the MLS is where you want to be, the most eyes on it and everything. And I kind of wish, and it's not happening, and there's been too much push, and NAR's got too much strength, the National Association of Realtors. But I really
Yeah.
would love it if, like, Amazon would have a platform. You could just list all your stuff on Amazon, all your houses and stuff. That would be truly great. Or at least maybe the opportunity for a homeowner to list there. And I'm
Right.
surprised they haven't set something up, but they probably had too much pushback on that.
100%. Yeah.
Um,
One thing that we've just launched is our marketplace. We raised a bunch of money. We raised 65 million in fall of 2021 from a VC firm out of Philadelphia.
okay.
They were actually the lead investor in OfferPad. So they took OP public. around the same time that they invested in our company. They liked the wholesale model because we're very balance sheet light versus an iBuyer, where they're carrying a ton of inventory and it requires a
Mm,
lot of capital. But one thing that the investment has gone towards is technology. And we
yes.
realized that we had all this transparency into kind of our acquisitions, like who we're marketing to, tons of data, how many appointments are being run, the demographics of the sellers. But we really didn't have any of that into the dispo side because a lot of it was handled at the local market level with relationships from your local acquisition guys and the investors. So you don't know like how many offers really they're fielding,
Mhm.
how many phone calls they're taking, who's offering what. So we've pushed everything to our marketplace now. So we've built it for ourselves, but all of Rebuilt's properties that we have across the country are listed at marketplace.rebuilt.com. And the great thing about that is that we can see who's bidding, how much they're bidding, how often they're bidding. And every offer that comes in, even over the phone, our agent has to go in and log the bid so that we have full transparency now into the dispo side as well as the acquisition side because the data is so important.
It is.
Um, we deal with so many rows of data. We joke that we're a data company more than we are a real estate company. And the cool thing about the marketplace, kind of the next generation on that, is that it'll have what you were talking about, the ability for other wholesalers to
Mhm.
list their properties on the marketplace, expose it to obviously their buyers list, our buyers list, but also integrate like a Shopify model where we have title integrated, lending integrated, construction, property management, and even if we're not the ones doing the construction or the PM, for example, having affiliates that can tie in to the marketplace and gain business that way. So that's really the overall kind of mission to Mars that Rebuilt has. But we have to seed that marketplace with our own inventory in
Mhm.
order to get investors on the platform versus relying on other third parties to just post their inventory.
Yes, and there's other and as a matter of fact, I got a text blast from Rebuilt today for a property in Cape Coral, Florida. So yeah, I get
Oh,
to
there you go.
I'm on your list. Yeah, it's actually there's a few other different platforms where people are listing properties and stuff now with newer ones out there, kind of like Rebuilt. So I'll be curious to see how some of these other ones do. You're using it for yourself, which works great. But as you continue to build that and grow yours, you're going to have more and more investors looking to put stuff on your platform and list on your platform and do that.
That's
There,
the ultimate goal. And
yeah,
really, we love the property management side of things, not for the revenue. Again, it's almost like the title, but it's the
yeah,
transparency into the data. Like if I know that one investor owns a cluster of properties in one area and maybe two of them aren't performing as well, but we have another one in that area that just came up on our wholesale set, we can like be like, hey, Mr. Investor, like you have two under management. They always seem to be turning over. There's a lot of deferred maintenance. Why don't you let us post those and move them for you? And then you can put that money into this other one around the corner where maybe a lot of the deferred maintenance is already taken care of or the rents are higher. So it would just allow us to really provide more. I wish my property management company would do that for me. Just give
you're
me
right.
some kind of like insight and like be actually running analytics on how my properties are performing versus just sending me expense reports.
Absolutely, I agree. And the analytics are huge. That's what you really want to see with your rentals and stuff. How can you maximize? How much can you? I think AI things like that. That's maybe a play in the future here as it gets a little bit better to tell you when you should be jumping up your rental rates. All right, every every $50 or $100 that it sees in your market that rents are going up. That way, when these new renewals are coming out, kind of approximately where to be price point, so you don't push people out, but you still retain them. Obviously, if you're competitive with everybody else out there, you're going to retain them because it's much more of a pain in the butt to move than unless they're saving a lot of money, right? But
Man,
those,
third party management companies, they make me, we've never really found one that aligned directly with our needs as the investor, because especially if they have construction in house,
Mhm.
you know, they want to drive the rents up because they get a percentage of the rents. But if it
Right.
forces the tenant out, then they get to pick up the construction to
On the
turn the
revenue side,
unit.
yeah. Yeah.
When I'd rather just keep the tenant in there for $50 less a month to not have to go spend $5,000 to turn the thing. So
Yep.
that creates a huge conflict of interest if you don't have, those couple things bifurcated.
It's so true, and I've been fortunate in Wyoming. The agent I have there, and I went the agent who is a property manager, but smaller level property manager. Right? She manages only a certain amount, but she's a bulldog, and she is on these tenants. And when something goes wrong, she lets me know right away and just takes care of it. But she uses my contractors, the people who I've had there, and then refers me to some other ones right there. But she doesn't get any markup or doesn't charge me anything on that side. She just collects it on
That's the only way to do it.
That is. It's the only way where
Be
you won't
fair.
have that conflict of interest, like you're saying there. Otherwise, you're going to have that conflict of interest because they know when you got to repaint it, do new flooring, touch up things, and maybe replace some different appliances. That it's going to raise revenue for them more so than increasing your rent by 5 or 10%. Right. So
That's right.
it does create that issue there. So in the markets I'm in, I try to find that smaller one, but you'll go through smaller ones too. It's just never a perfect science. It's always best if you could do it in-house, but it is such a freaking tedious task to do in-house that you really have to have dedicated people full time just to that and finding new contractors and having people work for you. So that's something we're always going to have to deal with and have to fight through, I think, in this business. And we can try to prove upon it, but it's hard to try to prove upon human nature. People are going to do things the way they've always kind of wanted to do things, and they're always going to be profit motivated, which I totally understand because we are all profit motivated. Right?
Yes, we're all coin operated, right?
So I get it, and we know the weaknesses and strengths there, but our play obviously with rentals and stuff, where the long term we want to, that cash flow is great. The tax advantage is more beautiful, and we're looking for that long term appreciation for down the road. We can eventually cash in on that at some point. But yeah, that's I think that's the challenge we all have as investors, is it not? Now, next, I want to get into a little bit behind you there. You got that great bourbon rack going.
Oh yeah,
You're in Kentucky.
bourbon library. Oh, sorry.
Yes, yes. So I love my bourbon. What is your favorite bourbon?
My daily, well, I shouldn't say daily, but give myself away. But I like just any of the Buffalo Trace products. Even just the 4-year Buffalo Trace, and then I really like Eagle Rare. It comes out of Buffalo Trace. It's the same mash bill, same barrels. It's just aged 10 years instead of 4, like Buffalo Trace. And then, I like E.H. Taylor for a little stronger proof. It's 100 proof versus 90. But really, the really like expensive bottles are all these high proofs, 120, 130 proof. That stuff to me, I guess if you're just going to have just one, but it just burns so much that it's I have a lot of those bottles just for collectors, but it's not something that I could drink regularly.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And the only high proof I really kind of enjoy because it's smooth enough is Breckenridge makes a high proof one. That's really good. And again, it's not really truly a bourbon because bourbon's supposed to only come from Kentucky, right? Kentucky water is different, but they call it their bourbon.
Well, that's a rumor, is that it's bourbon can come from other states. It just has to be, the mash bill has to at least be 51% corn. It has to be aged in a charred oak barrel that's brand new, and it has to go into the barrel at less than, I think, 130 proof. So it can be done in other areas, but I think just Kentucky has become so popular due to the agriculture and the amount of corn, and it's just been part of Kentucky for ages.
Yeah, and it is delicious. Most of the ones I like the most are from Kentucky for sure, and that's just because they've had the most time to improve upon it. But Breckenridge does make a great one, but they use
where's that out of?
Breckenridge, Colorado.
Okay, that's what I was going to guess.
So they use snow melt, and that's their trick.
Ooh, that's nice.
And with the snow melt in there, it just gives it such a smooth flavor and taste. And then they'll do things like they'll age it in a wine barrel or some rum barrel, and they'll do things that are different, which probably doesn't make it a bourbon officially, right? But it's really, really delicious, and it gives you some different flavors and stuff.
If they age it in the initial and the the oak barrel, and then they
initially.
maybe do a second in
Yeah,
like a wine or something then to enhance it, then that's a lot of times what you see where they get those different flavors.
that makes sense. It makes sense. And it does give a nice little distinct different flavors there for sure.
Absolutely. But yeah, like I said, I collect all those some of those more expensive bottles, but it's funny because I'm on a lot of these Facebook groups and different bourbon groups, and you'll see people from Michigan say like, "Hey, I'm coming on the bourbon trail. Where's the best place to get a deal on some stuff?" I'm like, "Stay in Michigan because you won't be able to find a deal in
Good
Kentucky because you
deal.
think about it like this is probably the most educated like class of collectors in the state or in the country. So that there's really it's
No
hard
deals.
when there's a release like people line up around the building to get a bottle at retail. There's only a couple places that sell retail bottles. They're the big liquor stores, but and then at the distillery you can find them on certain days. But all the little liquor stores they all mark them up.
Yeah, no,
So
they do. Yeah, you're
it's
not
kind of
getting
it's
any
hard to
deals.
find.
But I figure I was talking to a guy from Kentucky, and he got that bourbon wall back there behind him. We had to talk a little bourbon,
Absolutely.
and I love
Bourbon and
bourbon.
horses, man. Those are two things fond to my heart.
And in 2 years, when I'll be down there in the Bourbon Trail, I'm going to catch up with you. We'll connect. We're definitely going to, we're going to go to the right places because we have you as our
Absolutely.
guide.
That's right. Let me be your guide. I'll lead you in the right direction.
So I'm really looking forward to that. All right, now back to real estate here. We got all your different companies that you have out there, and actually you have four, right? You have a title company. Oh, you have a lending arm as well. Is that
We
correct?
do Rebuilt Capital as our
Yeah.
lending arm. We do bridge loans. We typical hard money. We were at 12%. I think we're at 14 now because we borrow the money and all the rates have gone up.
Yeah.
1 to 3% origination. And then we do 6-month terms. So if you need it longer, it's negotiable, but it's asset based lending. So whether you're a new investor or an experienced investor, we'd love to underwrite some deals for you. A lot of the money we raised was set aside for lending as well.
Mhm.
So we have some capital to deploy. We can close quickly. We run it through our title company, so it makes it super streamlined and easy. We already have all the docs on the back end. So folks can apply at rebuilt.com/lending. And there's an application there.
Beautiful. And that's the easy button there. I'm going to have all these links, by the way, in the show notes, everybody.
Okay.
So I'm going to have all of your companies here listed. We'll get all your social media and stuff. I'll make sure we get all
Okay.
that and put in there. It'll be attached in the podcast. People will be able to find it through the podcast. They'll also be able to find it on the YouTube channel. We have Flipping Out YouTube channel. So it's all going to be there. Now,
well, I know you have a lot of students and things that you coach, and like I said, we're hiring. So if anyone wants to learn that goes through your program, that's maybe wants to work for a company that can provide them with a bunch of leads and help us grow Rebuilt, and we would love to talk to them or anyone else is interested in learning about real estate investing.
I definitely have a few in mind, and I got some ideas in mind here, and we'll definitely talk offline. Definitely more about that for sure. But yeah, anybody looking to you want to right now, if you're out there looking for a job, if you're interested in real estate investing too, but don't know where to go or like how to get started, working for a company like Rebuilt's going to be the best way because you are going to learn from the ground up how to do a deal, what different types of deal, and how you guys look at it and analyze it. And there's nothing better. It's like a mentor, but you can actually make money doing it as well.
That's right.
And
That's
grow it.
exactly right. And I think a lot of new investors, I know I had it when I first started, was analysis paralysis. You miss out on deals because you're afraid to like take the next step and determine whether it's a good deal or how to underwrite it. So even as you want to begin your own investing career, if you work for us, we can help you say, hey, that might be a good one for you. That might be something that's worth taking on, or maybe stay away from this one for whatever reason, and kind of help you walk through that and learn how to do that. One competitive advantage that we think it's a competitive advantage, but it's definitely made it harder to scale, is that we're a boots on the ground company. We are building out. We have an inside contact center where all of our leads filter into in Nashville, and then they set the appointments for the local reps on a shared calendar. But we're starting to build out some inside sales where try to close the deals over the phone and whatnot, but that's not really our core competency. Brandon and my background is sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Jones in the home and doing a sales presentation. And so that's really what you would learn if you come to work at Rebuilt in that role as acquisition manager, is how to build rapport with a homeowner, go through a sales presentation, how to walk through a repair estimate form with them, and make a cash offer on the spot. We really try to make sure that before we go, all the decision makers are there, and that decision can be made today if we're
Right.
coming out to spend time with you. Follow up is huge, and a lot of money's made in the follow up with real estate. But at the same time, you don't want to just give them an easy out, or you'll end up in follow up jail and you'll never close a deal.
That's the truth. Yeah, you need to be able to get all your ducks in a row. Make sure you have all the people there to make decisions for sure, because you want to lock them up on site as often as you can. Because usually, if it gets kicked out to that next day or two, it's a lot harder. Your fall off is much higher, right? You're not getting in nearly the same rate. The most important thing is get under contract and learn that. So Rebuilt's going to teach you guys how to do that. You're going to learn how to do that and work for a growing company. And I couldn't refer anybody higher than to Scott. I've known Scott for years, as you guys know, as I said in the beginning here. Great guy. All the guys in the company. Al's fun.
Yeah.
All you guys. Brandon's great. And of course, if you're from Philly and you're an Eagles fan, and Sixers, Flyers,
Go Birds, man. Philly sports, man, has been on fire.
That's right. You're gonna love the company even more. So you got a lot of that camaraderie.
You all have a Kentucky guy in Maxey too, as well, on the Sixers. He played for Coach.
Oh, right, Maxey. I love Maxey. He is one guy that I do not want the Sixers to get rid of under any.
I know there was rumors about that. I hope they don't do that, because
it would be a huge, monumental mistake. They're talking about trying to get Damian Lillard. That would be a huge mistake. Give up Maxey. I don't give up a 22-year-old kid for a 34-year-old guy.
Not at all. Maxey's a hard worker, and and just has that drive. He's going to be something special for sure.
Absolutely. It's hard to find guys like that in anything in business, right? When you're looking for people, you want to find those driven people. This kid is a gym rat. He's in the gym all the time, getting better. Just like people in business, you want to find those people who are dedicated to working and doing that. And those are hard employees to find. So if a team is looking to just get rid of a guy like that, that's a mistake on their part. You want to get rid of those guys.
Another thing with Rebuilt that's different than I think most companies out there, what we do is we do offer a base salary. We plus high side commissions. Then we offer health insurance, 401k. So it's actually a real job. So if you're young and coming out of college, you can tell your parents you're not just going to work a 100% commission sales job. It's actually a career with benefits, and there's a ton of upside potential to move up. And then on top of that, everyone in our company gets equity when they join. It has to vest, but it's something that we really want everyone to take ownership. It's one of our core values. And what better way than as you own a piece of Rebuilt as an owner of the company. So we really take pride in kind of our comp packages that we put together for folks.
That's great. And there's not a whole lot of companies out there that give vested interest in a company. So that's a company that shows they want you to grow with them. And as you grow with them, you're going to earn more and more and more and get a bigger chunk of change. And imagine if the company was ever sold down the road, how much you could potentially get that way too. So always something.
Our goal, Al and Brandon and I, when we decided that, because it was a conversation we had to have with our wives and our families if we wanted to take on outside capital investors.
Yeah.
Because we say, hey, we could bootstrap this. We've done that, and just kind of keep it small for years and probably make more money year in, year out than we are right now. Or we could take this money, grow something huge, and then a few years down the road, take it to $1 billion company, go public, and have a life-changing event for us and all of our employees. So, when we first took on the investment, we had about 15 employees. We have 75 now, and we're growing quickly, like I said, with about 20 open job recs. So we should be at, right at 100 or a little under 100 employees by the end of the year.
Wow. That's a good size growing small business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. As good. And what you started from to where you guys have gotten to. And I've seen you guys when you were smaller, when you were first joined Investorfield back then. It's great to see how you have grown just tremendously over time.
Just updated my bio because I was at the latest Investorfield and I had the old one. It says, hey, they do some wholesaling. They've done a few deals a month since inception. And I'm like, I need to update that because we were doing like 80 to 100 not long ago.
Yep. No, it's
a
awesome
month.
stuff. It's
Yeah.
awesome. That's a ton. How many deals you guys are
It's
doing?
really gone down now, just like I said, with the market change. I think we're doing under 50 a month, but I know we were already at 80 to 100. We've done those months before, so I know
Yeah.
that we'll get back there. Last year we did 600 transactions. We were forecasting to try to double that this year. But it's, hasn't come without its challenges. I think if we could get back in this market to even doing 700 for this year, then we would be happy with that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we have constriction of inventory, which really hurts, and it makes it a little bit harder for all of us on investor side. Truly and honestly, and I hate to say this, but the worse the market gets, the better we do as real estate investors. So if the
Mhm.
market were to turn, we do well, but of course people would be suffering. So
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword there. It's a double-edged sword, but we'll keep powering through. We'll keep doing what we got to do, and we'll
that's
definitely
right.
connect, man. Scott, I really appreciate you being on. Appreciate it big time. A
It's
lot of
been
great
fun.
info. Oh, it's great. We did bourbon talk. So we're gonna have to do this at least annually. Maybe we'll do one near the Kentucky Derby here next year. We'll get
Absolutely.
you
I'll give
back
you my
on there. We'll get
picks.
an update. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And maybe we'll drink some bourbon while we're on it. We might make it a nighttime one. We might.
I love that. It'd be like a Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah. We'll make it fun, and we'll eventually we'll catch up in person here soon at one of these other events, like we catch up at the IMN conferences, some of these other
Yep.
things. But we'll definitely connect it, whether it's at Investor Fuel or you're part of Family Mastermind too, right?
Yes. Yep. We
Perfect.
joined that earlier this year.
And unfortunately, I'm going to miss this September because I'm going to Australia, a once in a lifetime trip to
Oh,
Australia.
nice.
So
Good for
that's going to
you.
be fun.
That's worth missing for that.
Totally, totally. So we'll enjoy that. But again, anybody looking for a career in real estate investing, but don't necessarily know how to get started yourself, rebuilt.com might be the way to go. All right,
We'd love
guys.
to have you.
Absolutely. So connect with Scott. Oh, last thing. If anybody wants to reach out to you directly, what's the
For
best way to
sure.
reach out to you?
It's super simple. My email is scott@rebuilt.com. Scott@rebuilt.com.
All right. And we'll have that in the show notes, everybody. And we
Awesome.
will catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.